Hi, I'm Marcus Coward, and this is Wake Up New Bedford. I'm here with Jenny Newman-Arruda, owner of TL6 the Gallery, which is a store downtown New Bedford. We're here to talk about, we're really here to finish part one, and this is here for part two, talking about how she started her business, how it's been affected by tourism, how it's been affected by COVID. We're here to talk about the Star Store and also thoughts on the commuter rail and how that could improve business. So one thing I wanted to ask you before was you were talking about how you and Ariana met, but how did you guys come up with the idea of TL6 the Gallery?
So when she graduated a year before me, it took me 5 years to do the program because it's a lot. And I also took a lot of textiles classes because I was interested in textiles. So 5 years, which I think everyone should try to take their time when going through college, if possible.
Yeah.
And then her and I, in our junior year, we were interested in graduate programs. So we did go and look at some graduate schools. She did get into one graduate school, but their program was very CAD-CAM at that point. They were switching over, like we went to visit, and it was very different than our program, and she wasn't quite sure she wanted to go there. And so her and I said to each other, well, if you don't end up going to graduate school, let's have a studio and make jewelry, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Wow.
And so she built a studio, just real simple. We just had like one torch, 2 desks, you know, and just had a little tiny space, and started making jewelry. And then we were like, well, how do we sell it? So I actually, yeah.
Great question. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you can make something, and also this was back in 2002. So you know. People, right now, like everyone has a website. People have websites just to have websites. It's not just about selling now. I mean, people have everything. Yeah. So back in 2002, we would take photos of our jewelry, and then we painstakingly edited them all in Photoshop.
Okay.
Back then, and then made a catalog that we would print ourselves.
Okay.
And then we would do home parties. Like, have you heard of a Tupperware party? It's where a group of ladies get together, and there's a woman that shows you all the Tupperware products, and then you buy them.
Okay.
You order them.
Sure.
So we would do a jewelry party.
Okay.
We'd bring a set of jewelry that we had already made and that was available to buy right there.
Sure.
And then we also had catalogs of things that we knew we could reproduce.
Sure.
But it was still all handmade. None
Yep.
of it was cast. Not that there's anything wrong with casting. It's definitely a good way to make, like, casting is so you make one thing, and then you make a mold,
Sure.
and then you can make a mold so that you can pour wax, and then you melt the metal and you put it, it's called lost wax casting, and you can make several, like if you make a ring, you can make a whole tree of rings.
Oh, wow.
So that's how most jewelry is made. It's mass produced.
Yeah.
So we did home parties.
How did that go?
It was interesting.
Sure.
Ari would be like Vanna White, and she would like model the jewelry, because we'd have it on little trays, and I would talk about it, and she'd be like this. And it worked pretty good for us to get our name out there at first. But the big thing is usually home parties are part of multi-level marketing. And we never wanted to be a multi-level marketing scheme.
Okay.
So it wasn't going to, we needed to move on from that. So then we started putting our stuff in shops, in consignment shops. We have sold wholesale before, but we were having more success with the consignment shops. We were doing vendor fairs and craft fairs. Those are a lot of work.
Yeah.
Exhausting.
Yeah.
You pay to get in, and sometimes you sit there all day and sell just a few items.
Yeah.
So really, I only use vendor fairs more as like an avenue
Absolutely.
to advertise.
Letting people know who you are and see the pieces
Exactly.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, meet and greet and sort of do that. We were, for many years, we were part of, it used to be called Summerfest, and then they changed it to New Bedford Folk Festival.
Sure.
Which was a street fair and music and all of that in downtown. And then we were, this was before 2008, going into 2008, we had 7 different shops that we were supplying jewelry to that was selling at these shops. And White Knight Gallery was one of them. And then the economic crash of 2008 happened.
Yeah.
Like people saw it happening and they were like, oh goodness. So a lot of the people that owned the shops where our jewelry was selling were calling us up saying, come get the jewelry, or we're mailing it to you, we're closing, we're retiring.
Wow.
Where like the writing is on the wall, galleries are not where it's at, we got to get out while we can,
Yeah.
you know, kind of thing. And we were like, okay, so this is happening. And then White Knight was still with us and everything. We were still selling there. And then after Christmas, they said to us, we're retiring because it's a tough business.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's a tough business. You have to love it. It's not the same as selling tires. It's not the same as,
Yeah, it's not like everyone needs it every day.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
I mean, it's not like anyone needs jewelry, period.
Right.
But I mean, everyone wears it, or
Yeah.
a lot of people do, but it's not as a necessity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you go through hard economic times, like the economic crash,
Yeah.
people go, we are not going to be spending our money on what they consider, I wouldn't say frivolous,
But luxury.
but luxury.
Yeah,
like on a
absolutely.
luxury item.
Yeah.
So when the ladies from White Knight told us that they were going to be closing, our studio was actually, they had let us have a little tiny space in the back. So we had moved our studio there so we could do on-site repairs.
Okay.
And I looked at Ari and I said, we don't have any shops selling our jewelry anymore. We don't have any wholesale right now. And this is our last location and it's closing. And I don't want to go back to having like a space in a basement. So we decided to sort of buy the business, like to rent that space, because
Sure.
we don't own it, we rent our
Sure.
storefront. We decided to take over the storefront and to buy like the cases and some of the merchandise that they still had. And we never closed the door. And what that means is that we never, like we changed the name,
Yeah.
but we never stopped doing business. And that way it was easy.
A good transition.
A
Easy
good transition, yeah. Because a lot of businesses, and this is one of the things in the city that makes it hard for businesses to open and to start, is getting your occupancy permit and getting all the permits you need
Sure.
and
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
it in a timely fashion. And
It's bureaucratic.
exactly,
Yeah.
and slow at times.
Yes.
And so now you've rented your space and you're paying this rent, but you're not going to be open.
Wow, that'd be
And
terrible.
Yeah, and I see that happen to other businesses that open downtown. And we were just so lucky that we were able to make a more smooth transition.
Yeah.
And another thing we did is we redesigned the storefront, changed all the colors and stuff. But instead of, and most places find it easy, close everything down, do all your renovations. We actually were like, we don't want to do that. We moved everything to one side of the shop, painted everything on, and rearranged everything on that side, and then did it the other way.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
And we did, Ari and I are very handy. We did almost all of the work ourselves.
Really?
And we did have, when we first started, we did have a third business partner. But she realized how much she didn't like the part where you have to sit in the store. She really just wanted to be able to make art and not have to do all of that
The
extra.
day-to-day responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because that is a lot, and it gets in the
Yeah.
way. Like Ari does all the bookkeeping, I do most of like the I like interview artists, or I will interview people that might want an internship, or, you know, do that kind of thing and work with the customers more, make phone calls, stuff like that. I do a lot of the social media posting.
Sure.
And Ari does a lot of the bookkeeping. Ari also, as part of opening our business, she went and took an H&R Block tax class to learn how to do tax preparing.
Wow.
Because we were paying someone else to do our taxes.
Sure.
And she was like, I don't even know if they're doing this correctly. And
Wow.
turned out they weren't.
Wow. Okay. She's like, I can just do this better. Why not?
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So she took a class,
Wow.
and then she is also a tax preparer.
That's so interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys are really handy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we do a lot of the work on the inside of our building ourselves. Like we learned how to change the ballasts and the big lights, you know, and all of that. I think we are getting to the point, we were, you know, it's been 18 years, I'm 46 now. I don't love getting on a ladder anymore,
Yeah.
you know? So we are getting to the point where it's like sometimes you have to know when it's good to call someone else.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of the business owners put a lot of sweat equity that they never get paid for, or some of us joke around and are like, oh, that's the free labor, you know, or that's the, you know, you're paying your dues. A lot of small businesses are a labor of love, and some of that reason is because we're living in an Amazon world,
Yeah.
you know, where you can just hit, you know, buy on Amazon and get it 2 days from now.
Yeah.
And some people really think that's the same as buying a handcrafted item. And even Amazon a few years ago started their own version of Etsy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that also, you know, and then Etsy became, when Etsy first started, it was very handmade, and now it's gone from just handmade to now people are selling things that are sort of handmade or put together or styled. And there's nothing wrong with styling or putting together,
Yeah.
but there's a difference between what Ari and I do and that.
They're just moving away further and further from the original craft itself, which is what
Yes.
you're trying to maintain.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they're buying parts that have been crafted and putting them together, fine, but like that's what we like to do. But I would like to get back to, we talked about the Star Store
Yes, I'd
hurting
love
the
to. Yeah.
businesses. And then another thing that also hurt the businesses was, and people are going to say, well, Jen, it's a Rite Aid, who cares? But there was a Rite Aid
Yeah,
downtown.
absolutely.
A lot of people went there to get their prescriptions.
My grandmother included.
Yes, and,
correct.
And also, I was friends with all the people that worked there. I knew the manager and everything, and I know Rite Aid is a corporate company and everything. But I did talk to the people that worked there when I was dealing with trying to get the parking situation lifted, made more comfortable,
Improved. Yeah.
reversed, whatever.
However
you
you
know.
wanna put it, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Just changed, yeah.
Changed. And they said they too saw a
decrease?
a decrease
Yeah.
in customers coming in when that happened. And so the larger corporation that owned Rite Aid, and I heard this while listening to NPR, they were like, okay, we're going to have to close down the least grossing stores, you know, and so
interesting.
that's some of how that decision was made.
Sure.
But I then later found out that the health center downtown also, I believe, bought that building. So it was like two things. I don't know if the chicken or the egg came first.
Sure.
But I will say between the Star Store closing and now Rite Aid being closed,
Yeah.
and the health center hasn't moved back into that building, so it's not like there's more people coming down.
Yeah, there's just so much less foot traffic.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, because
absolutely.
people would walk by my shop all the time to go get their prescriptions. They'd poke their heads in or pop in, or I had a lot of customers.
Yeah.
Another thing that, you know, the city is, some people think it's a good thing, some people think it's a bad thing. There's pros and cons as I see it. There's a push to put housing downtown in
Yeah.
downtown New Bedford.
Yeah.
Well, there's some cons to that are parking. Where are they going to park?
Yes, correct.
which is definitely an issue. I park in the garage, and I think everyone that like lives down there, works down there, should park in the garage.
Yeah.
It makes sense,
Yeah.
and it's cost effective. A lot of people don't like parking garages. They're safe, they're fine. You and I both go there.
Yeah.
We've been fine.
They have
right?
two big ones.
They have
Yeah,
two
yeah.
great big ones,
Yeah,
right? Exactly. And now also without the Star Store there, that one that was the Zeiterion parking lot, is being underutilized.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We should
Yeah.
definitely use that. But so the building across the street from my building used to be a bunch of offices. Then it got bought. And now the first floor, I believe, is an autism center, and that's great. I'm glad that they found a space. And also April Evans' hair salon is there, and then Celia's boutique. I think they're at least all on that block.
Okay.
But the upstairs was all offices. It was United Way, and I think the Coalition for Social Justice might have been in there at one point. And they would all come to my shop and shop.
Okay, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, now it's all luxury apartments. And here's the thing, when you're renting a luxury apartment where you're working all day,
Yeah.
I'm a business that's open during the daytime, whereas when there's offices, people are there during the day, and they're going to go on their lunch hour or before their work, or on their 15-minute break, and come and shop at the stores. So those are some of the pros and cons with the big push to put a lot of housing on top of all of the buildings downtown. I just don't think that like trying to do it all at once, we're going to see more stores close.
Yeah.
And it's sad, and I don't want to see it happen, but I can tell you right now that this December was one of
The slowest months for
the
TL6.
slowest months,
Yeah.
which is really sad. And I don't want to be like, oh, but we need to be, if we want to make business better, we need to be real about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And in order to be real about it, and for city council to listen to us, to hear us, because they need to help us. I mean, we're there downtown renting these buildings. We're really helping the community. When we first started selling our jewelry downtown, there were not as many businesses. It was everything sort of closed at 5. You didn't really go downtown. There weren't all of the, it wasn't built up. The Star Store was new, so there was that, but there weren't as many restaurants and shops, and it wasn't as lively and connected and comfortable feeling. It was kind of cold feeling, and you kind of felt like unless you were going to a bar, you weren't going to go there after 5 o'clock.
Yes.
So, and I think that unless the city and all of the powers that be really try to help us right now, we're not going to make the recovery that we would like to. We've hung on during the pandemic. We hung on, we planted roots during the economic crisis of 2008. And that kind of can lead us into talking about the commuter rail.
I would love to. I don't mean to cut you off, but I would just love to, for my own understanding for the viewers, just ask you these few simple questions about the Star Store. So it started in 2002?
Yes.
Okay. And then it was closed in what year?
So actually, I graduated in 2002, and that was the spring. So we would say that it opened in fall of 2001.
Sure.
And then I was there for that whole year.
Okay.
So, and there was a lot of prep work that summer. We all had to move out of the old building. There were a lot of students that got to work on the new building, moving the supplies. So that was like employing students, and professors' kids came and helped. There was really like a community feeling about the opening of the Star Store. A lot of people were really happy. And then there was a lot of people that worked on making it happen. Mark Montigny, and I'm not going to get but I'm by no means an expert, but there were a lot of things that happened behind the scenes to try to make this amazing deal happen.
Sure, we have plenty to talk about. So it opened 2001, 2002. But it closed what year?
It closed, I want to say, not last fall. So we're in
Now we're in 2025.
2025.
Yeah.
So 2024, 2023.
Okay, so it was open for 20 plus years. Okay.
Yes.
And it was a studio for UMass art students to make their work and then to sell their work?
Yep, they had a
Okay, great.
gallery on the first floor, and also what a lot of people didn't realize is there were a few other things in the building. There was an NPR section, so public radio had an office there, and there were a few classes that BCC used a spot in the Star Store as well. Now they were a much smaller part, and they were not part of the beginning of it.
Sure.
The beginning was really to be the replacement building and a better building than the Purchase Street building. And so some of what happened is that UMass didn't take care of the building the way they should have.
Yeah, and so that's my last question is, so then who was the main pushing force to get it closed and why? Put simply.
So a lot of people think that one of the main people was I'm not it might have been the chancellor of UMass or and then definitely the head of the arts department didn't help. One of his thought processes was that wouldn't it be better to have everything in Dartmouth, like the students don't really want to go over to New Bedford, which is so not true.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a student that fought really hard. She was a ceramics graduate student. Her first name is Fallon, and she is the first person that told me, I had heard on NPR like some inkling, like they were saying, oh, if they don't come to an agreement, because there were so many, working parts of this, UMass was supposed to rent the building for a certain amount of time, and then they would have gotten to buy it for a very low rate. So it would almost be like it was kind of getting gifted to them. But they were supposed to be responsible for upkeep and
so
all
it was UMass that closed it?
I would say that UMass, I would definitely say that UMass is who put the final.
Interesting.
But I believe that it was a group effort, and I believe that a lot of balls got dropped that could have been worked out.
Sure.
UMass was basically saying, well, we don't want to now take over the building permanently because it needs so many repairs to all of the systems, because for 20 years they didn't, take care of everything and keep it completely pristine. And so the larger UMass, because UMass isn't just UMass Dartmouth, it's a whole,
It's a whole thing.
group of schools, and their thought process was that the building was going to cost them so much money that it would be like a loss in taking it over.
Okay.
But you've also lost this giant building.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And so going back to the commuter rail, first, are you excited for the commuter rail?
So when we took over the place in 2008, people would say to us, when they heard that we were going to take over that storefront, they would say to us, this is the time you want to get in because the commuter rail is coming.
Sure.
They thought the commuter rail was coming in 2010.
Wow.
So they were like, city council people and other building owners and people I was friends with would say to Ari and I, like, this is a great time to start it because like 2010 is going to be here and we're going to have the commuter rail. So sure, we're like, great, kind of definitely naive to it just thought it was going to happen and that it was going to, and some of my thought was like, that'll connect us to Boston, so I can go take a trip on the commuter rail and go see all the museums, and it'll be good for that purpose. And so many things happened. I can't even go over all.
Yes, it's been stalled. But are you excited for it?
So knowing now what I know, I'm a little bit apprehensive.
Why is that?
I would love to say that I am excited for it. Well, so some other places have gotten the commuter rail and they really didn't use them. I think there's a place in Rhode Island and there's one out, I want to say maybe the Cape or something, and they got it before us, and now they're underusing it. And that's sad that much work would go through, that then it would be underutilized.
Sure.
I would definitely want it to be utilized, but are we ready for what is going to happen? The commuter rail coming into what's called a gateway city, which is what New Bedford is called. Gateway city is like a smaller city that is trying to be built up, sort of trying to
Become into a major city?
Yeah, to become like a major city, and it's also at like an entrance, like we have a working waterfront, and things like that. So your gateway cities are Lowell, are Fall River, New Bedford, Worcester, and what is and can happen is this gentrification. I call it gentrification happening at a light speed.
Sure.
It's happening so quickly that we don't have. The city doesn't have the infrastructure and the capacity to take care of the residents the way they need to be taken care of during this period of upheaval.
Yeah.
Because they keep saying, oh, but people from Boston are going to come here and there'll be tourists here. People from Boston can now come live here as a more affordable option where we already have a homeless crisis going on.
Wow. Yeah, that's a amazing point. Yeah.
Right, and I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
And I think now that I own, because Ariana and I also bought a home in New Bedford and decided to really invest in New Bedford. I do know some of the business owners in New Bedford now live in surrounding towns, so it's a little bit different. Like, we can vote here and we can have a say in the local politics. And now that I've seen what gentrification can do, and I've talked to people on all spectrums of the commuter rail coming in, and I'm watching in real time the housing crisis unfold, I'm like really sort of nervous.
So let me ask you this. I mean, thank you for that amazing response and just showing your humanity, but as a business owner, are you more concerned with how it'll affect the local residents rather than the tourists coming in and giving more business and helping saving your business? Is that not your priority?
It's a tough call for me because I have a very strong sense of community.
Sure, yeah.
And when I moved here, the hometown that I grew up in was a very affluent town, and I was a lower middle class kid growing up in a very affluent town. And when I moved here, and it didn't have a lot of different cultures, And then when I moved here, it was like a little bit of a shock because there's a lot more culture.
Yeah, it's diverse.
Diversity than I had growing up.
Absolutely.
And I was like, I kind of like this. Like, I kind of want to settle here because I like the nitty and the gritty and the different diversities, and you know, the small businesses. And the great thing about this city is it's definitely a city, but it's also like a hometown.
Absolutely.
You
I know
know,
what you mean.
there's all different styles of living. There's
Yes.
apartment living, there's housing, you know, houses, there's public housing, you know, and it was all together. And I feel a lot of unity here, getting to know, you know, everyone and the different cultures. And so now it's kind of like, yes, I would love it, like ideally, if the train could come and do the things that, the good things that it should have done in 2008, then I would have, then yes, I would be for that. But if the train is going to hurt the community that I've come to appreciate and love more than it's going to benefit, I don't know how. Like, I want to have my business no matter what, and I want my business to be successful no matter what. And I have many ideas that, you know, I'd definitely be willing to talk to city council people and to the different groups out there that we can work together to try to slow down the gentrification to a speed we can keep up with.
And I would love to just continue this conversation, but we've run out of time. And so thank you everyone for watching. This has been Jenny Newman-Arruda from TL6 the Gallery from here in New Bedford. And we just want to say thank you for watching Wake Up New Bedford, and catch us on the next episode. Peace.